Today's session will be on standard parts. This session will be around 50 minutes, so if you have to step out, please remember we'll post a recording on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions regarding today's session, please write them down and send them via email. We have a lot of you on the line today, so you'll be in listen-only mode, so we don't get feedback from speakerphones, etc. Once again, today's topic is standard parts. So first of all, what is standard parts? Standard parts is it is a part management system. So it allows designer and design engineers to define. So by definition, I mean you can also have your custom parts defined inside your standard parts, or you can store, select, and position. These three terms are referring to the database which you get with your machinery library and the standard part administrator. So you can store, select, and then position those components inside inside your assemblies. So those components which comes with machinery library are your nut, standard nut bolts, bearings, structural members, pipe, and fitting. Now, as far as agenda for today is concerned, first of all, I'll be covering some terms which I'll be using in today's session about standard parts, and then once we go over that, I'll start with the installation and configuration of standard parts for both local machine that refer to your node lock licenses and also for your servers. So once we're done with that, I'll cover stuff on how to add custom parts in the database, and also we'll cover how to add family of parts inside standard part database. Once we go through all that, there's some specific settings which you need to configure for user machines if you're doing a network install, and I will cover that. So as far as licensing is concerned, yeah, with the seat of Classic and Premium, you get machinery library. So that machinery library is a database of all the components, standard part components, and you don't have to pay any extra charge if you have Classic and Premium license for machinery library. So, but for piping library, you have to. Since it's the add-on, you have to buy a piping library on top of your Premium and Classic licenses. But if you have any other license file other than this Classic and Premium license, you can always get the machinery library add-on as an add-on. Now, how do we find out which license I have? For any Solid Edge user, you can go to your help, Solid Edge help, about Solid Edge, and it will tell you what license you have. Now, based on the user type, I have divided standard parts into three parts. First is administrator, the second one is configuration manager, and the third is user. Most of today's presentation is concerned about installing and configuring, so it's more or less inclined towards the administrator part, Solid Edge administrator. So if we talk about administrator, some of the capabilities of standard part administrator is you can register parts, you can generate parts, and we'll cover all of them in detail. You can update database, or if you have a separate database for your custom files, you can also use your database manager. You can add custom files, and also you can work with the part editor, and you can also edit file properties, or you can add or remove file properties from the documents. As far as configuration manager is concerned, if you're going to install standard parts on a local machine, that means on your node lock machine, you don't have to worry about configuration manager because it automatically takes all the settings. But if you are doing a server setting, you have to use a configuration manager, because then you have to specify where your database is installed. In that case, you have to point the configuration manager location to the server location. So it basically helps defining the paths. Now, as far as installation is concerned, whenever you install standard part administrator, you will notice that the configuration manager automatically gets installed. So this is not a separate installation. So all you have to do is just install administrator, and it will install your configuration manager. Next come machinery and piping library. As you all might know, it has it's a huge database of files, and it contains different components with respect to the different standards, ANSI, ISO, etc. As far as the installation folder is concerned, if I'm doing a local install, you will notice it automatically, whenever I install Standard Part Administrator, it automatically creates this folder on the C drive. One thing I would like to tell you here is, whatever I'm showing today, I'm running unmanaged environment, so I will not be covering settings of inside or setting on Team Center. So Standard Part, it is a main application. So whenever the user they want to place components, so they have to go inside their Pathfinder and their parts library, and then there's a tab for Standard Part, and they can run this application for the user. Then comes the Standard Part Administrator, and now we'll talk that in detail later on, and also configuration wizard. Then comes part editor. Now, this part editor, whenever you are in Standard Part Administrator, you'll notice there is a term part editor. Now, most of the time it is grayed out. For the parts which get installed by generic library, generic machinery library, you'll see that the part editor is grayed out. So the main purpose of part editor is whenever you use your custom components, put the custom components inside the Standard Part database, that's where you can use part editor. And once you use, you can always add your own file properties. And then comes installation database. Now, this database is a DDB file. So whenever you install your machinery library and piping library on top of Standard Part Administrator, it creates two different database files. So this database file will contain all the information regarding your what all parts are registered, what are generated, what are not, what all parts are not generated. So the only time I have to look for these files is like if I'm installing both libraries, and I have to make sure that whether they are up to date or not. I can go to the root folder and look for this database file, and I'll show you the location later on. Then comes customer standard parts. I named this as customer standard parts. So these are the components which we are just purchasing. For example, we're purchasing, and maybe we have the models from the website downloaded. So what I want to do here is, as an administrator, I want all the Solid Edge users to use the same set of components. So what I will do is I'll just dump this folder inside Standard Parts, so that whenever they launch Standard Parts, they can see this custom Standard Parts category, and they can use those components. So you can have as many folders. You can have vendor-specific Standard Parts. You can create different categories inside Standard Parts, and then you can put those components under those categories. Parent files. So these are standard global files. So whenever, like say, if I have a type of bolt and I need a different size bolt, so that basic file which is stored inside a database is a parent file. So whenever I select different settings in it, what it does, it creates a single part file. So it is derived from the parent part. So that parent part file is the one which gets installed initially. Then comes a part name. It's a global part identifier, and I would recommend you to not change the part name inside the standard part, the one which comes with the generic installation. And there are some settings which you can change. I'll show you, and those settings are just like the version of standard part, like 9.5 or 10. If you don't want that inside the part name, you can change that. But what you can do is you can change the part name for the files, like your custom files which are importing inside the database. Then there won't be any problem if you do that. But for the generic installation, I recommend don't change the part name. Now, then comes the SAC file. Now, once we have our network installation done on the server, so if we want to transfer all the setting to all our users, so what we do is we do that with the help of SAC file. It's located on onto your root file, and all you have to do is just point all the users to this SAC file location onto the server. Now, working folder. Now, depending upon how you are planning to do installation, for local machine installation, it always installs wherever root drive you have. See, it will create a new folder, standard parts folder, and it will create another standard part folder within that Solid Edge standard part folder, and that this folder would be your working folder. Now, the second thing you'll notice here is for the network installation, you can always create a new folder, and you can specify that folder as your working folder on the server. Now, there's one setting which is really important. If you have that already set up, now this setting is a copy components to the working folder. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but if I have a component, for example, say I have this assembly open here, and this assembly has components, a couple of components, so it is saved onto my desktop here. So what I want to do is I want to launch a standard part. So it's very easy. What I can do is I can just bring my parts library, and then I can launch my standard parts. So what it's going to do is it's going to load my settings. Since it's a local install, it's looking for the C drive and working folders and taking all the information from that. All right, so now before we go ahead, there are a couple of options here. Visual, like if you want a visual picture, or you want a catalog, or you want to select a component with the help of specification. You'll notice that there are a couple of standards here which are installed, and you can customize what standard you want based on your requirement. So you'll notice that whenever I highlight this the component at the bottom, it shows me a link. So this is the link where I have installed my my standard part administrator and my machinery library, etc. Basically, this is my working folder for now. So usually I get a request from customer that what they want to do is they want these standard parts to be linked to their assembly, and also they should reside inside the assembly folder. So what I can do is there is an option here. If you go to Tools Options, there is an option here for Use Assembly Folder as Working Folder. So what it's going to do is it will create the component inside a standard parts, and it will create a copy and put it inside the assembly folder wherever the assembly is saved, and it will place another copy inside this folder, which is my working folder. So what I'm going to do is just select this copy to working folder option and hit place. So it's going to generate the component and place it. And now what I'll do is I'll just save the component here. And you will notice if I go back to my folder here, you'll notice that the screw is automatically created by standard part, and it will place it onto your your assembly working folder. Now, thereafter, what you can do with this is now the component which is placed inside the assembly is is the one which is going to be edited. So if I decide to edit this component, if I want to put some features in it, so the copy which is inside my assembly, that is going to be edited. The one which is stored inside my standard part installation directory, that is not going to be edited, and you can use this tool. So so that's what as I've showed you, like that it copies the component inside the assembly folder, and whatever features you create onto that component will be saved in the copy which is saved in the assembly folder. Now, your standard part database, it uses SQL, Microsoft SQL database. Now, if you have your SQL installation and you create a new login, you'll notice that this prefix will appear on to your SQL database. Now, for configuration wizard, I've already told you if you are doing it a local installation, you don't have to worry about this. It is only going to set path if you're doing it on the server. All right. Then comes a part name. Now, whenever you install a standard part, you will notice that it gives a part name and also give it a version. So if you don't want the version, now this version is specific to the database. So 9.5 is the version which the version of the parent file which is installed when you install standard parts to the administrator. So if you don't want this version, you can always, there's an option to turn that option off, and then you will not have that version. All right. Now, from here on, we'll start with the installation process. Now, first thing we're doing it is local install. So the first component we'll install is the standard part administrator. So this component is inside your Solid Edge DVD. You can just plug in your Solid Edge DVD and select the standard part administrator component, and you can start with the installation process. The installation process is very easy. You can just follow the prompt, and one thing you need to be really careful is selecting this option here. Now, this option is for master part files. So whenever now, if you don't have this option turned off, what you will have, Solid Edge standard part doesn't create a folder directory or root directory. So I would recommend that you select this option for installing master part files. So if you have this option turned on, you will notice that it creates the Solid Edge standard parts folder into your C drive, and if you go inside this folder, you will have an entire directory of other folders. So if you don't have that option checked on, you'll notice that it doesn't create any folder. So if you have your print master part file selected, then you have that folder structure. Why do we need that folder structure? Later on, if we decide to install machinery library and piping library, you can always install that those libraries on top of that folder structure. So once you go inside that folder, you'll notice that it creates these 4 folders. Now, what it basically is, whenever you see this 9, I'm running on SD4, and this is the version of standard part administrator master part files. So these are the files which get installed generically. Now, this is not this is kind of a subset of the main machinery library database. So if I open this folder, you'll notice that it has some parent files, 115 number, but you will notice that this number is substantially bigger once I install machinery library and piping library into this folder. All right. So after that, once I'm done with the installation, I can start with I can launch standard part administrator from all programs, and then the next process is to add components. All right. So after that, the standard part administrator, we switch to machinery library. Now, inside machinery this machinery library, you need a different DVD for this. So so the installation is very easy. You select machinery library and go through these prompts, and then you will notice once you install your machinery library, it will create another folder inside your standard parts folder, and this folder will be version 10. So this folder tells me whenever I have to go on user machines and find out like whether machinery library or piping library is installed or not. So I usually look for this version, like there are 2 folder versions. So if it has only this version, that means they only have standard part administrator, standard parts administrator, the master files, not the main machinery library. All right. Then comes piping library. It is also very easy to install. You can just select the prompt and just follow the prompt. And the only thing you have to be really careful is the place wherever you're installing it, and you can also select this whatever standard you want. You can pick, and you can just install all folders and subfolders to the local drive. All right. So once we're done with the standard part administrator, we've installed standard part machinery library. Also, we've installed piping library. You will notice that the category print parts category, the number is substantially more than what we had before. And also, if you want to check, for some reason you want to check whether the installation was successful or not, what you can do is you can go inside this print part and look for this DDB, database files. So you'll notice there are 2 database files. One is one says ML and PL. They stand for machinery library, and PL stand for piping library. So you can verify the installation of these databases. Right, so once you have your standard part administrator installed, you will notice it creates 2 folders automatically. You don't have to install configuration wizard, and you can start with your administrator. You can start with your configuration wizard first. Now you'll notice that you don't have to specify anything. Since it's a local install, it will take all the settings, default settings, and all you have to do is hit save. That's all you need to do, and then you can start with your administrator, and then as I've told before, you can add the parts. So if you select the database tab, you can hit add parts, and then you can say you can select this setting for add from existing multiple part files, and hit next. And then you'll see a link here, and this link will point to your local machine. And if you're doing it on server, you will notice, I'll show you later on, it points out to the server location, and you can hit OK. And if you have multiple paths, you can also add path, or you want to delete paths, you can delete the paths. Now, since we are adding the parts, whenever it says adding, but what it's doing is registering the database inside your standard parts administrator. So it's going to register all the parts, and then once everything is registered, you will notice that your category number and number of parts would be substantially more than what you had initially with your standard parts administrator. So right now everything is installed. You notice a category part, and you notice that the status on these components based on the standard is non-generated. Now, you don't have to generate everything. You can generate a few components depending on your needs. Generation processes, depending on the power of your machine, it might take 8 to 10 hours. So if you want, you can generate it, or you can generate as per the requirement. All right. Now we're done with our local installation. Now we'll talk about server install. Now for server install, the way I'm showing you this slide is like what I've done is I've categorized your IT network administrator and Solid Edge administrator as different components. So say your Solid Edge administrator would be a person who has Solid Edge on his machine, and he wants to administer Solid Edge standard parts. So as a user will use the file, but as an administrator, he doesn't need to have the network privileges, and that all depend upon where you install your Solid Edge administrator or machinery library on the server. So for the sake of ease, what I've done is I've taken this server component. Any box, server doesn't have to have your server operating system. Any box, like say Windows XP or Windows 7 box, can act as a standard parts server. So what I've done is I've named a server as LI102, and this machine will have my database, and also will have some folders which will be shared with different users. And my standard Solid Edge administrator, I haven't given it any name, because my administrator can be on the server, or it can be any user. So the only difference it's going to make is like the folder which you are installing on the server, you're installing standard parts on the server, that folder permission, you have to restrict the permission. So if you can share that folder to all the users, so, and you can restrict the permission. So all the users will have read and write permissions, but the all the users have only read permissions, and all the administrator will have both read and write permissions. So the administrator can generate files or create new file properties, or do some administrative job on that. So he needs write permissions. So if you don't want users to do all that, you can limit by just changing the folder permissions on the server. Now, on the server, I'm doing two assumptions here, and these assumptions are since standard parts database, it requires SQL database installation. So, and this SQL 2000 Express 1 is for ST4. You can download it for, this is a free version. You can download it from the Microsoft website, or it is also on your Solid Edge DVD. You can just browse to this location and install it. Now, if you need any information on the installation, like how this is going to be configured, you can just email us with your SOL2 name of the company, and we'll just email you the document for server setting, whatever SQL server setting you want is recommended. And the second component is Management Studio, SQL Management Studio, and this component is also available for free. You can download it from Microsoft's website. And there are some recommended settings inside your Management Studio. So once you installed your Management Studio on the server, you'll notice that it takes a server name. So what you're doing is In order for Solid Edge standard parts to access your SQL database, what you can do is you can create a new login, and this is very important because you will need this login information later on. So inside your SQL Server Management Studio, you create a new login and give it a login name, and also you can give it a password. So you have to write this down, this information, whatever you enter, and also you can make sure you have the SQL Server authentication option checked in. So once you have done this, what you can do is you can create a new folder onto your server, and you can give permissions and share settings, permissions to different users and administrator on this folder. And then once we are done with our SQL database and also Management Studio, what we can do is we can start with our standard part administrator installation. So you can just put the Solid Edge DVD in, and you can start the installation process. You can give it a username, organization, and you can install the master part file. Now this step is a little tricky here. So the way I'm installing the standard part administrator is, since my administrator and server, these are two different machines, so I'm installing the from the administrator machine, but the location of where I want to install is on my server. So you'll notice that by default it will try to install on my administrator, but there's an option to change this. So I can change this to my to the network installation, so to my server. And this is a folder which we just created onto the server. And this will be place where my standard parts administrator will be installed, and all the folder structures will be inside this folder. And you can hit OK and follow the prompt. And similarly, you can install your machinery library on the server. Now here what I'm doing is, instead of doing it on the administrator, I'm just putting the DVD on the server. So that's why you will notice that I'm not changing any location here. It's going back to the C drive, and this C drive is just, it is on the server, and this is a folder which I just created. So I can just put my machinery library, and similarly I can install my piping library onto the same location. And we can verify the database whether they have installed correctly or not just by looking at the DDB file inside and when it was modified. All right, so once we have our everything installed, we can move back to the administrator machine, Solid administrator machine, and we can launch the Solid Edge standard parts administrator. So now the first thing what we'll do is we'll just we'll go to database manager first. The reason why we want to go to database manager is because we're telling standard parts where our database is installed. It's not installed on the same machine, so we have to point out to the server. So here what we can do is, inside database manager, I can just create a new, first I have to specify that it's the external network database, not local database. And then I can give it a name. I can give a name to a database, and also the information. It might ask you some information on username and password. So the information which you collected while creating your server management studio, the username and password, that information you can use here, and then you can specify your external network database as your working database. And once you have done that, you can add the ports. Notice we don't have to do this on the local machine because it automatically detects the local installation. Since we're doing it on a server and the administrator is different, that's why you have to do this step. Now, if you have your server and administrator both on the same machine, you don't have to do this step. Now, you can add the parts. Again, the process is very similar to the local installation. You just select this setting for add from existing multiple files, and then make sure you have this location to server now, because that's where our standard parts are installed, and machinery library, everything is installed. And you can register the part, and once it's registered, you can generate them depending upon your need. All right. In next section, I'll cover how to add family of parts to standard parts. So if you have like a part and there are a couple of members link to that pod as family of pods, what you can do is you can just select database, add pods. So what you can do is you can select, there's an option for family of pods. You can select that option, hit next, and then you can just say add from family pod master, hit next, and you can select that master file here. So one thing to note here is this master file should be located inside your installation of standard pods directory. So create a new folder inside. Here I've created a folder, company custom pods, and in this I have this my gear housing pod, which is my family of pod member. And once I've selected that, you will notice that I've selected 2 of them. Now, what you can do is you will see the status here is not created. And you can just select this. If you add these components, hit next, you will see that there will be a message that tells me our master pods are not up to date. Now, if you haven't published the family of pods component, you'll get this error message. So once you have published those documents, what you will see is your status will change from to up to date, and then if you hit next, it will you can specify whether you want to add this family of pod to piping library or you can add it to the fastener system. Now, one thing to note here is you can also create your own categories. You can also create your own on properties, file properties. So here what I'm doing is I'm just adding a new property here. These 2 tabs, they will let you do that. You can just select your custom build, or whether you can give it a variable yes or no. So what I've done is I've just inside this I've created a new category first. So you create a category with this tab. So if you hit it, it will create a new category, and that category name is company custom pods. And then I can put those family of pods component and also create those new file properties into this new category. So here I'm just giving it a horsepower name. And then I can just add this new file property and also give it, right now I haven't given any number for horsepower, so that would be my variable name. I can always enter it. So this is a perfect example of how you can create new file properties inside your standard pods family of pods. Also, you can navigate, and you can select a thumbnail for the family of pod member, and then you'll just hit next, and you'll notice that it will successfully generate those components inside the standard pods database. And you'll notice if you go back to your family of pods and select that particular category which we created, and select that member, the new file property which we create will be listed, and it will have all the variables whatever you added. Now, once you have your family pod, the next thing is the custom pods. Now, if you have a folder and it has components, maybe you have downloaded from any website, and you want to add those components inside database, standard pod database, what you can do is you can go back to your administrator, and then you can go to database manager. First, we can define it as an external database. So there are 2 options. You can put that folder, the directory which has custom pods inside the standard pods generic installation, or you can consider that as a different database. So here what I'm doing is I'm creating it a new external network database, and I've created 2 different databases, and I can select the database and make sure I have whatever I want. I can keep it as a working database. So all I have to do is just select that database, whatever I want, and I can switch between my SD4, SD3, or whatever database I want to with the help of this window. Now I can add the component here, say with the same setting, add from existing multiple pod files. I can select the folder which has my custom pods, and hit OK, and you'll notice that it will add. Now, since it's custom pod, it will give me a warning here. This warning is, do you want to run pod editor? So what pod editor, why do you want to run pod editor is, if you want to rename the component, or say you want file name different than pod name, you can put all that information inside pod editor. And also what you can do is you can create your own file properties inside your pod editor, and I'll show you a little bit. Now, what you do is first you can you can either browse it to the category you want, or you can also create your own category with the help of this tab here on the right hand side. You click on this tab and this window will open up, and you can create a new category with this tab, and you can name it. In this case, I just say my custom parts. And then what I've done is, you'll notice that this it automatically takes this category in. I can give it a part name, and also what I can do is I can just create a new file property here. And you'll notice I've created a file property, given a part name, and also I can put a variable inside my part property, whatever I want. I want horsepower, and you can just put this number in. And here what I've done is I've added all these components, my custom components here, and also whatever file properties property I specified, it automatically got listed here, and you can generate as per the requirement. And this list will have all my custom parts. You'll notice here is I have one assembly. You can also have assembly inside this custom part folder. All right, so now, as far as the migration is concerned, this is a separate topic. Suppose I have a ST3 database, ST3 database, and what I'm doing now is installing ST4. And what I want to do is I want to use my ST3 standard parts installation database. I don't want to install the new one. For this particular case, what you can do is you can go back to your option, add parts inside standard parts administrator, and then you can select the setting for last working database, and then you can select whatever database. If you have a 104 already installed, or you want 103, you can always you can select whatever database you want and make it as a working database. Don't forget this tab to make this database as an active working database. And then you'll notice that it automatically takes a setting, and you can hit next, and your whatever database you selected, it will be loaded. And you'll notice that inside your standard parts administrator, those previous component, or whether it's a new one, depending on your choice, whatever database you want you made active or working, that will be installed. All right, so now we have installed on the server. We figured out which one is administrator. And for the user machines, as far as network installation is concerned, all you have to do is go inside the Solid Edge options. You'll notice that whenever, if you don't do anything, you'll notice whenever users say start standard parts, they will get this message here that the SAC file is not correctly set. So what you can do is you can go to your Solid Edge options, go to file properties, and then look for the standard parts SAC file. And you can modify the location and then specify this location to the SAC file on the server. And then it will have all the required information in order to run standard parts on the user machine. So the SAC file is inside your generic standard parts installation directory here. All right, that's all I have as far as today's presentation is concerned. We have a training coming up in December and January. If you need more training information, you can go to our website. And also, here's the contact information. If you have any question, comments, please email us, call us. Thank you very much for your time.